sorry for what happened, Your Honor, but he needs life in prison. And I'm not a bad person, but I made mistakes. But I'm not just some gangbanger that she tried to portray me as.
Justice eventually catches up with those who break the law. And for heavy crimes like murder, the guilty must pay for their evil deeds.
We find the defendant guilty.
But what happens when notorious gang leaders who shed blood finally come face to face with the consequences of their actions? You won't believe the courtroom drama that unfolds as you watch these dangerous gang leaders react to their prison sentences.
We'll break up soon, and I will kill more.
Let's find out, starting with a promising young artist whose life was unexpectedly cut short by some trigger-happy thugs. Michael Boatwright.
This morning, 4 men have been charged with the murder and the death of up-and-coming rap star XXXTentacion, but 2 of the suspects are still on the run this morning.
On June 18, 2018, late 20-year-old rapper José Dwayne Ricardo Onfroy, known to the world as XXXTentacion, went out shopping for a motorcycle with his step-uncle, Leonard Kerr. What he didn't know was that 4 men, Boatwright, Trayvon Newsome, Dedrick Williams, and Robert Allen, were stalking him. Earlier that day, Onfroy had made a withdrawal for $50,000, cash, intending to purchase a bike. However, Williams and Allen, who had been trailing him, followed him into the dealership to confirm his identity. Once sure of their target, they regrouped with the others, waiting for the right moment to strike. As Onfroy and Kerr drove off from the shop, a black SUV suddenly blocked their path. 2 masked men, Boatwright and Newsome, jumped out, brandishing their firearms. The rapper had nowhere to run, unlike his uncle who fled the scene. They demanded the rapper's designer bag full of cash, and when he wouldn't comply, they opened fire. Onfroy was shot at point-blank range before the assailants snatched his bag and sped off, leaving him bleeding in the driver's seat of his BMW. Bystanders quickly gathered, some recording the horrific scene, while others called emergency services. The footage of Onfroy slumped motionless in his car quickly took over the internet, shocking the hip-hop community and his millions of fans worldwide. Law enforcement wasted no time. The 4 suspects were swiftly arrested and charged with first-degree murder and armed robbery. Robert Allen later accepted a plea deal, agreeing to testify against the other 3 in exchange for a reduced sentence. During the trial, prosecutors argued that the crime was coldly premeditated. The defense attorneys, however, scrambled to cast doubt. Boatwright's lawyer accused Allen of trying to save himself, while Williams' attorney made an outlandish claim, pointing fingers at none other than rap superstar Drake. He referenced an old post where Onfroy allegedly claimed that if anything ever happened to him, Drake would be responsible. But the prosecution dismissed the conspiracy theory, focusing instead on hard evidence. Surveillance footage showed the entire attack unfold, while social media posts made by suspects shortly after the murder only sealed their fate. Photos and video recordings of them flaunting stacks of $100 bills shortly after the crime was undeniable proof of their involvement. But the most critical theory came from Onfroy's step-uncle, Leonard Kerr, who recounted the terrifying moment of the shooting.
Front of the car. Go ahead and show us what you want to do.
Taller one was like this. You don't come out the effing car. And he was like with a gun. You don't come out the effing car. The shorter one was at Jassay's side.
And Robert Allen broke down exactly how it all went down, meaning Boatwright as the gunman, Newsome as the one who grabbed the cash, and Williams as the getaway driver.
What position, who was the driver?
Adrian.
Who was the front passenger?
Michael Boatwright.
Who was the back passenger?
Trey Williams.
And where were you seated?
Behind you.
And now that you're back in the car, where are the firearms?
The car.
Where? Are they in the lump in a trunk, or does everybody have their firearm on them?
With overwhelming evidence stacked against them, the jury found all 3 men guilty. They were sentenced to life in prison without parole, while Boatwright, the triggerman, received an additional 30 years behind bars. Meanwhile, Allen's cooperation earned him a lighter sentence, 7 years in prison plus 20 years of probation. And while José Onfroy had dreams of becoming a worldwide superstar, the victim in our next case was a teenager with dreams of becoming a police officer. Jormaki Martínez Estrella.
The brutal murder of an innocent Bronx teen finally coming to a close nearly 5 years later.
The last of the gang members found responsible for the death of 15-year-old Lisandro Jr. Guzman Feliz were sentenced today.
On the night of June 20th, 2018, 15-year-old Lisandro Jr. Guzman Feliz stepped out of his Bronx apartment to meet a friend. Along the way, he noticed 4 vehicles trailing him. Alarmed, he broke into a run. What he didn't know was that the people inside were members of the Trinitarios gang, and they were hunting him. Guzman Feliz sprinted for several blocks before seeking refuge inside of a bodega. But the gang was relentless. They stormed in, and though the store owner initially tried to protect him, hesitation gave his attackers just enough time. They dragged Junior outside, where they gruesomely battered him. On the sidewalk, the 5 gang members, armed with knives and machetes, viciously slashed at him. The attack lasted mere seconds, but the damage was fatal. Stabbed in the neck, Junior somehow found the strength to stumble back into the store, only to be turned away. With blood pouring from his wound, he ran toward the nearest hospital, just a block away. Unfortunately, he never made it. Video footage captured his final moments, collapsing near a security booth as 2 police officers that were present failed to help him. The entire attack was caught on CCTV and cell phone cameras, spreading across social media and sparking outrage. It was later revealed that the gang mistook Junior for someone else. A Trinitario leader admitted on Snapchat that the murder was an error. Nearly a full year after Guzman Feliz was brutally killed, justice was served. On June 14, 2019, a Bronx jury convicted Jormaki Martínez Estrella, Manuel Rivera, Elvin Garcia, Jose Muñez, and Antonio Rodriguez Hernandez of first-degree murder, second-degree murder, and gang assault and conspiracy. By convicting them of first-degree murder, the jury acknowledged that Junior was tortured before his death. However, Estrella, who delivered the fatal neck wound, showed no remorse in court, even smirking as the victim's mother wept. But his arrogance was short-lived when the judge sentenced him to life in prison without parole, ensuring that he would never walk free again. And from the tragic case of Lisandro Guzman Feliz, we move to another senseless act of violence that claimed the life of an innocent elderly woman, Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas thought he was untouchable. At just 17, he had already built a reputation on the streets, robbing, stealing, and doing whatever it took to prove himself. But on one August night, his need to dominate would shatter lives, including his own. On August 7, 2011, 34-year-old Sharon Staples was driving with her 13-year-old son along West Lisbon Avenue in Milwaukee when her car became the target of 3 teenagers looking for their next victim. Among them was Michael Thomas, accompanied by 17-year-old Malik Merchant and 18-year-old Anthony Scales. The trio had been riding around in a stolen minivan, hunting for someone to rob. When Staples stopped, Thomas and Merchant approached her, demanding her purse. But she wasn't just about to hand it over. Instead, she did the only thing that she could. She tried to run. But Thomas wasn't about to let her get away. Without hesitation, he pulled out a gun and shot her. As Staples collapsed, bleeding out on the pavement, her terrified son ran for help. The 3 teens, showing no remorse, circled back, not to check on her, but to snatch her purse before speeding away. What they didn't realize, or maybe they just didn't care, was that Staples was 10 to 12 weeks pregnant. That night, Thomas didn't just kill a mother, he killed an unborn child. When authorities arrested Thomas, the weight of his actions finally hit him. He pled guilty to 2 counts of first-degree reckless homicide for taking the lives of Sharon Staples and her unborn baby. He also pleaded guilty to armed robbery and possession of a firearm as a felon. His sentencing was anything but calm, as the Milwaukee County judge handed down his sentence, 35 years in prison, followed by 10 years of extended supervision. Thomas turned toward his family sitting across the gallery. Then, in a sudden move, he attempted to approach them. Before he could take more than a step, sheriff deputies tackled him to the ground. Chaos erupted in the courtroom as his family shouted in protest, exchanging heated words with the officers.
Don't do that to
But none of it could change the outcome. Thomas had thrown his life away for a stolen purse. Now he would spend more years behind bars than he had ever spent as a free man. But just when you start to think Michael Thomas's reckless gang behavior was unforgivable, the next case will show just how deep the darkness of gang violence can go. This time, involving the notorious MS-13 gang and the brutal murder of an innocent man. Victor Rodas.
Victor Rodas is one of 6 people charged in connection to Raymond Wood's death. 17-year-old's body was found in Bedford County in March of last year.
On March 27, 2017, 17-year-old Raymond Wood became the victim of a cold-blooded murder in Virginia, orchestrated by Victor Rodas and 4 other members of the violent MS-13 gang. The plot that led to his brutal death started as a fake drug deal designed to lure Wood into a trap. Investigators later uncovered that after Wood arrived for the supposed drug deal, he was kidnapped by Rodas and the others. The gang members proceeded to strangle Wood and then stab him 29 times in a savage act meant to show their power. The murder was allegedly part of an initiation ritual with MS-13. Rodas killed Wood to solidify his position and prove his loyalty to the gang. Rodas was charged with first-degree murder, robbery, and kidnapping. As the trial began, the prosecution argued that Woods' murder was a brutal initiation into MS-13, a gang known for using violence as a means of asserting dominance and respect within its ranks. The defense, however, tried to minimize Rodas' role in the killing, claiming that he was only the getaway driver that day and that he had no knowledge of what was happening. They painted him as a reluctant participant who was unaware of the violence that was unfolding. But just when it seemed like Rodas might escape the consequences of his actions, investigators uncovered a critical piece of evidence. Lead investigator John Maddox testified that while searching the scene, he spotted something shining through the grass: a metal dragon's head.
I walked about 20 yards and looked down because it was a shimmer of light that hit just right, caught my attention. I looked down on the ground and saw a dragon's head.
When he retrieved the object, he realized it was the handle of a knife that had been used in the murder. The blade was over 9 inches long, and his discovery was critical in turning the case around. With this new evidence, the jury convicted Rodas on all charges. He was sentenced to 55 years in prison for the murder of Raymond Wood. But while Victor Rodas faces life behind bars for his heinous crime, the next case takes us to another shocking act of violence. Joseph Lancia.
Joseph Lancia today began his 5-year sentence in prison 1 month after pleading no contest to 3 counts that he shot at a truck driven by a rival as it drove by Hells Angels headquarters in Providence.
Joseph Lancia, the 30-year-old president of the Hells Angels in Rhode Island, made a grave mistake one afternoon when he fired at the truck of Richard Starnino, a former gang suspect. Starnino had been caught up in a long-standing feud with Lancia, and when he took the shot, the bullet hit the passenger side of the vehicle, but Starnino managed to drive off unharmed, finishing his delivery as if the shooting never happened. The timing couldn't have been worse, though. There were children nearby and a school across the street.
The bullet struck the passenger side of the vehicle. No one was injured. It should be noted that there were children in the area at that time, and there is a school across the street from the location of this shooting.
Still, the shooting put Lancia on the radar of law enforcement, leading to a raid at the Hells Angels headquarters. Lancia's arrest came swiftly. In a plea deal, he avoided the attempted murder charge, but pleaded no contest to felony assault and battery. During the court hearing, fellow Hells Angels members showed up in full force at this hearing. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, Lancia's response was silence.
Is there anything that you would like to say, sir?
Nothing.
He was given a no-contact order for the duration of 8 years.
There is a no-contact order for the protection of Richard Starnino for the duration of 8 years.
Judge Kristen Rogers made it clear any breach of this release terms would not be tolerated, and no contact order was imposed between Lancia and Starnino.
A 5-year full sentence, all of which is to be served at the ACI.
Lancia was sentenced to 5 years in prison, along with 10 years of probation. However, Lancia isn't the only gang member who got trigger-happy and had to face the consequences, as we see in this next case. David Parga.
A La Habra gang member was sentenced to 50 years to life in prison today for murdering a college student at a Halloween party back in 2006.
It was October 29th, 2006. The night was supposed to be about fun, costumes, and celebration. Leland Washington, a 27-year-old Cal State Fullerton student, had no reason to think otherwise. He and his friends were at a party in La Habra, California, enjoying the festivities like any other young people would. But in a cruel twist of fate, that night would mark the end of his life. The party was hosted by individuals associated with the West Side La Habra gang, a group known for its ties to the Mexican mafia. One of its members, 28-year-old David Anthony Parga, was there too. At some point during the night, tensions rose. Washington and his friends were asked to leave, and as they stood outside, they couldn't have known that they would never make it home. Parga, for reasons that made no sense, pulled out a .22 caliber pistol and shot Washington 4 times. No argument, no provocation, just a cold-blooded act that took a young man's life in seconds. When the case went to trial years later, Parga was convicted of second-degree murder on December 20th, 2013. During his sentencing, he turned to Washington's mother and, in what seemed like an attempt at remorse, said,
"I know there's nothing I could do to bring you guys' son back, brother back, but I am deeply sorry for what happened to him. To you specifically, I want to say sorry to what happened to your son. I know the pain you're feeling. My mom comes to see me, she cries because of what's happening to me, and I could only imagine what you're going through. You lost your son."
But for Washington's family, those words could never undo the pain. A promising young man was gone, and all they had left were memories. Here was his mother's touching reaction in the courtroom.
And I think if Mr. Parga had ever known him, he couldn't have been anything but a friend to him. He couldn't have found any other way but to make him a friend.
The judge didn't hold back in condemning Parga's actions. He called the murder senseless and cold-blooded, emphasizing how Washington had his whole future ahead of him, a future that was stolen in a moment of violence. In the end, Parga was sentenced to 50 years to life in prison. But unlike David Parga, what happens when a gang leader is brought to tears and sobs as he faces justice for the casualties of his reckless shooting? Brandon Spencer.
I'm sorry for what happened, Your Honor, but came to life in prison. And I'm not a bad person, but I made mistakes.
In 2012, 19-year-old Brandon Spencer turned a Halloween party on the University of Southern California campus into a war zone. What started as a simple gathering ended in a bloody shootout, with Spencer firing into a crowd and wounded 4 people. The incident was the result of a gang feud, and Spencer's target was a rival gang member. However, as the chaos ensued, students scattered, some fleeing the scene while others went into hiding. Spencer attempted to blend in with the fleeing crowd, but this smart idea wouldn't work, as he was soon apprehended by LAPD officers. Charged with 4 counts of attempted murder, Spencer maintained his innocence throughout the trial, insisting that he wasn't the person that he was being portrayed as.
I'm sorry for what happened, Your Honor, but I can't do life in prison. And I'm not a bad person, but I made mistakes. But I'm not just some gangbanger that she tried to portray me as.
But the prosecution argued otherwise, pointing out that Spencer's actions demonstrated a blatant disregard for life, shooting into a crowd with an intent to kill. At sentencing, the weight of his fate crashed down on Spencer. As the judge read out his 40-year-to-life sentence, Spencer lost control. He slammed his head against the table, screaming in frustration. Officers quickly restrained him, and he was escorted out of the courtroom.
The minimum period of parole eligibility is 15 years plus 25 years of life in accordance with Penal Code Section 12022.53D. This is to be concurrent with the.
But this isn't the only time a gang member was moved in court, as we see in this next case. Tariq Jackson.
You know, the life that we was living, being in gangs and all that other stuff, it ain't worth 16 years or death, because eventually you be put in a situation and there's severe consequences that come with that.
At just 16 years old, Tariq Jackson pulled out a gun and ended the life of 20-year-old Keandre Duff during a gang-related fight in 2015. The bullet struck Duff in the head, killing him instantly. Jackson was charged with open murder, but as his trial approached, he pled guilty to second-degree murder. During his sentencing, the courtroom was filled with raw emotion. Keandre's mother, who had lost her son, addressed Jackson directly. Despite her pain, she forgave him, expressing sympathy for a young man whose life had taken a tragic turn.
Our whole world was turned upside down from that point. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because that when our children make these decisions out here, they don't understand how it affects everybody. You took it upon yourself to end my son's life. I asked somebody to send a picture of this young man to my phone, and they sent me the wrong picture. And then they sent me a picture of Mr. Jackson. And when I looked at him, I said, Lord Jesus, this is somebody's baby. I'm like, this is not a killer, Lord. This is a young man who had dreams to be more than what he became.
She also went as far as to comfort Jackson's mother, sharing a brief hug in a moment of mutual sorrow. Jackson, now 18, during the sentencing, was visibly moved. He apologized, expressing regret for his involvement in gang activities and the devastating impact his actions had on others.
First off, I just want to say sorry to the family of the victim. I wish the situation would have played out like that. I never thought that my choices and decisions would have affected so many people. You know, no mother deserves to bury her son, and no mother deserves to see her son change. My bad choice led to a lose-lose situation for me, my family, and the family of the victim. But I take the full responsibility for my actions and am ready to face the consequences. I want to use my time to make me a better person and not let my time bring me down.
He also warned others involved in gangs, urging them to change their ways before facing the severe consequences that he was now facing. My life is far from over, he said, determined to move forward despite the weight of his past.
But to my family, I just want to say, don't cry, this isn't a funeral. My life is far from over. They can lock my body, but they can't lock my mind. It's going to be a long tunnel I have to walk through, but I always stay focused at the light at the end and always keep smiling on my face like always. I love y'all and I'm going to miss y'all a lot. To my brothers and sisters, I love y'all. Just always remember me. To my mom, to Sincere, I apologize for all what y'all do.
Jackson was ultimately sentenced to 17 to 40 years in prison for Keandre Duff's murder. But unlike Tariq, who expressed remorse for his actions, this next gang member showed no such regret. In fact, He vowed to kill more, shocking everyone in the courtroom. Luis Bracamontes.
You don't want to allow me to do that.
Step out of the hallway.
I don't regret that. The only thing that I regret is that I was killed too. I wish I killed more of those mother. I will break up soon and I will kill more.
Meet Luis Bracamontes, the guy who laughed in court and boldly claimed that he would kill more. Luis was an illegal immigrant and badly gang member who went on a violent killing spree in October 2014, resulting in the death of 2 law enforcement officers in Northern California. His rampage began when he shot and killed Sacramento County Sheriff's Deputy Danny Oliver in the head during a routine stop. After stealing a car, Bracamontes went on to shoot and kill Placer County Sheriff's Detective Mike Davis Jr. His crime spree also involved carjackings and other shootings. Despite being arrested after a widespread manhunt, Bracamontes showed no remorse for his actions.
We find the defendant guilty.
In the courtroom, he shockingly admitted to killing the officers, with his defense attorney not even attempting to deny it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please step out of the hallway.
Dead.
Rather than expressing regret, Bracamontes smiled, clapped, and blew kisses toward the victims' families. His careless behavior escalated when he vowed to continue his killing spree if he ever escaped prison.
You don't want to allow me to do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, please step out of the hallway.
I don't regret that. The only thing that I regret is that I was killed too. I wish I killed more of those mother. There was no need to promote it.
Be silent. Be silent.
Ultimately, Bracamontes was found guilty of first-degree murder. His behavior throughout the trial demonstrated a complete lack of remorse, as he defiantly made threats to kill more in the future. Even his own attorney had this to say.
Mr. Bracamontes is responsible for the death of both Deputy Danny Oliver and Detective Mike Davis.
But if you thought that Luis's attitude was the most remorseless from a reckless killer, then you probably haven't seen this next case where the killer literally fell asleep during his sentencing. David Moses.
David Moses, who was 17 at the time, entered the house of Dorothy Session on April 14, 2010, and hit her during a burglary, knocking her down. Session died from that assault.
David Moses, a 17-year-old gang member, was convicted for the brutal murder of 81-year-old Dorothy Session in Bakersfield, California. Moses, along with 15-year-old Katila Nash and 19-year-old Angelique Nash, entered Sessions' home with the intent to rob her. When Dorothy resisted, Moses mercilessly beat her, leaving her with multiple injuries, including a broken nose, missing teeth, and severe bruising. Unfortunately, Session died from the assault. The trio was arrested shortly after the crime. Moses and Katila Nash were charged with first-degree murder, while Angelique Nash faced accessory charges. In 2015, Moses was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Despite the severity of his actions, Moses showed no remorse during his sentencing. He yawned repeatedly and he even dozed off, appearing uninterested in the proceedings. His behavior led prosecutors to suggest that Moses treated the trial as a game, showing a complete lack of empathy for his victim. Moses appealed his sentence, citing his age at the time of the crime. But in 2020, an appellate court upheld his life sentence without parole. The judge, emphasizing Moses's lack of rehabilitation and brutal nature of the crime, reaffirmed that Moses was a dangerous individual unfit for society. As of 2025, Moses remains incarcerated, serving his life sentence without the possibility of parole. These cases remind us of the brutal reality some victims face and the terrifying indifference of the criminals behind these crimes. If you were shocked by today's video, make sure to leave a comment and let us know your thoughts on these court behaviors. If you haven't yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss one of our videos. Thanks for watching.